Hello, and welcome to Startups in Real Life. We are in week 8 of a 10-week, 2 times a week discussion with Rae Hames to talk about all things startup. If you have any insights or advice, we'd love to hear it. Drop us a message and we will connect. So let's get to it. Rae, how you doing today?
I am good. I am good. I had a good workout this morning, which sets off the day. And I have been deep in the world of investor prep. So that's been my morning so far.
Great. Well, maybe in a couple of weeks we can talk a little bit about what that looks like. Okay, we've had a deep dive on the customer over the last couple of weeks, and I'd love to focus on how you believe Teamera is helping them. Okay, so you ready for that?
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about it.
Sweet. So I'll start with product positioning. So can you explain the pain points the product will solve for each of the potential customer types? And just as a reminder, we've said it's companies that are bringing things in-house, advertising marketing agencies, and then also just anyone who's got 5+ freelancers that they're managing at any given time.
Yeah, and I think that it's, so exactly. So we've got 3 core audiences that as we launch, we're going to be testing into how they interact with the tools that we're building and where we find the most value creation. I know from personal experience as a hiring manager of freelance teams, as an agency operator, as a brand side manager, how difficult it can be to build comprehensive teams of flexible talent. We also know that there is just a massive growth in the freelance supply for a lot of reasons. And I think that as we're looking ahead to the future of work, we know that the best talent out there is going to want to work freelance. And that in turn, there's a lot of benefits for companies of all different types to build systems that can help them build and manage flexible teams that let them run lean, that let them bring on kind of fractional skill sets and ultimately help move their bottom line. And it's all about just building the infrastructure to allow for that. I think that some of the problems that we're solving are no-duh problems that don't have no-duh solutions yet. So I think that across the 3 audience segments that we're looking at as we launch, there's 4 macro problems that all of them are struggling with. I would love to hear also, like, for anybody listening, like, I would love to hear hand raiser, like, yep, that's me, or nope, you're off base, because as we're going to market, like, the more feedback we have, the more we can understand nuanced examples of how teams are managing freelancers, the better we can future-proof our tools that we're building and hopefully create some value for everybody out there, right? So the 4 key pain points, and we've heard this, like I said, across my years of personal experience, years of running a consulting company that was really focused on building in-house flexible teams for major brands, and doing a ton of customer research. Like, these are the 4 macro problems that have come up that we're solving for. Point 1 is just the basics of keeping tabs on your existing freelance relationships. I've said this in the past and I will continue to say it. I don't know a single creative director or agency owner that doesn't have a Rolodex of freelancers that they like, that they know, that they've worked with in the past, and yet they don't have a great solution for managing that Rolodex outside of spreadsheets, outside of their phone contact sheet. So point 1 is helping companies organize their freelance roster in a way that's actionable, that helps them keep better tabs on their availability, and that ultimately has a system running in the background to help engage that talent, to make sure that their data is up to date, to make sure that their availability is up to date, that there's updated rate ranges, so that as projects are coming up, company side leaders can have that information at their fingertips to help sort project teams based on those variables.
Yeah.
Point 2 is building teams across full-time and freelance talent to suit project budgets and timelines. This is definitely something that agencies face all the time, is flexing up and down based on, oh, you got a new project, you got to scramble to hire. And it's certainly a thing that brand side teams struggle with, because for the most part, you're working with a dedicated full-time team. And in the past, you were outsourcing project work to agency partners. And as this in-housing movement that we've talked about picks up steam, and as there's just an increased supply of freelancers that brands can work with directly, brands need a better system to pull those individual people over into project teams that give them the same flex capacities as agencies have previously provided to brands. So ultimately, what we're talking about here is a tool that helps companies build teams that align with your project budget, whose team availability aligns to the project timeline. Obviously, what skill sets do you need? Do you need a designer, a copywriter, a videographer, a UX specialist, etc.? And then deeper data points are about your team that can make your team stronger. Building a diverse team that matches your customer audience demographics is a massive strength and benefit that we can offer our customers, and that there's known benefits to having diverse teams behind the lens. Having a filter that you can match your team's personal hobbies and interests on very intuitively brings in the right people that match, whether it's your company or whether it's your agency's client that you're looking at building a team for. Having a direct connection to a category that you're interested in helps you bring a personal perspective to that work, and certainly passion behind it as well. So that's really important. And so I think that's a really exciting tool in itself, right? Like, we've got freelance, keeping tabs on your freelancers, and then an intelligent team builder that's able to build teams based on all of those variables. There's huge business benefit, like I said, for brands and agencies. The third major pain point that, like I said, everybody that I know faces is finding new talent. And I think that this can be alleviated in some sense by having a better handle on your current freelance roster. Because if you're not constantly starting from square one, if they say, oh man, I need a contractor to come in for the next 6 months, I might as well just put out a job post because I can't be bothered to dig up my contact reference from somebody that I worked with last year. It's a bummer. It's a bummer for the people that you've worked with in the past, because those people want to have, as a freelancer myself, my experience was certainly that I wanted to have long-term relationships with the companies that I was working for. Didn't mean that I needed to be working for them all the time, but that having them, tap back into me when they needed was a great way for repeat business. And freelancers are certainly incentivized to have those relationships. Point being, if and when there's not talent that you can tap back into, you need to find new options. And there's a million marketplaces out there. There's a million ways to find new talent. But what we're building are some simple, lightweight integrations that help our users source talent from trusted talent networks that are super niche, that we've done quite a bit of vetting on, that help them post roles to large-scale platforms like LinkedIn and source candidates back in to what we call a talent bench, similar to an ATS platform, but for companies that haven't invested in an ATS or that are focused on just freelance roles. It's a really lightweight solution that will feel familiar. And the fourth major pain point that, like I said, I've experienced, and that everybody that we've talked to knows to be true, is time spent managing contracts and tracking scope burn. So when you have a project that lasts 6 months or 12 months, you've got say you have a $500,000 budget, you are tracking weekly your contractor burn rate. Did they work overtime? Did they submit expenses? How does that match back to what I have available? And how does that track to the progress that's being made on the project? Certainly for agency operators, you live and die by the profitability of your projects, and managing your flexible team that's supporting that's a variable cost, is really important to be able to make those projects profitable. If you're on the brand side, hit your budget spend. Sometimes you're trying to max out your budget because your company has a use it or lose it policy. And so in that sense, you could be getting to the end of the year saying, hey, how do I juice this budget? What else can I do so that I can submit for my next year's budget? Knowing that I did everything I could with this year's allocation. And so what our tools do is tie the upfront contract. Like, we have all of our talent contracts that we, known costs, what those hours, what those rates are. And we're able to track that weekly and provide, whether it's, there's kind of a manual option and there's an integrated option that provides a quick view of your scope burn week to week, which again is something that I personally have spent double-digit hours doing when I was managing large-scale projects in the agency space. And you think about what you could do with that time back.
Yeah.
Everybody can work more efficiently. And we've done a lot to build data systems behind this that are validated. You don't have to question it. Everything is pulling from time tracking and payment platforms, so you know what's going out the door. And there's a lot of value in that, like I said, both to brand side folks who are trying to either maximize their budget spend or dial up and down project budgets because they have to make priority choices across multiple projects that they're running, or agency side users who, again, are protecting their profitability.
Right. I keep smiling because the person behind you is so agreeing with you right now. I mean, they're like leaning in.
My pet, let's call him George.
George, okay, Georgina. I don't know. Yeah, one or the other. Yeah. So how are customers solving for that now? What is it that they're
I think that there's a big range, and it kind of depends. It depends on the size of the company. All of these things can be done in spreadsheets, right? That's where we've all started. That's where the concept for a lot of our tools have started. Okay, I'll keep a tab. I'll keep a tab of my freelance address book live in a Google Sheets. Okay, I'll make a budget tracker in Google Sheets. There can be much more sophisticated web-based tools that allow for this. Some project management software, you can put in a budget amount, but there's not a lot of options that actually hook into your live time tracking system that's going to your payroll. And I think that that's where we're really connecting the dots. And I think that, as I mentioned, there's a lot of tools out there to help find new talent. Most of it I would compare to thrift store shopping, right? Like, you can put a job post up on LinkedIn. We've all done this. I mean, it can take 10 or 15 hours just to get a job post ready to go live, depending on how many stakeholders you have, depending on if you have a draft that you're working from, going through revisions and making sure that it's actually compelling, which is more and more important these days, as we're trying to reach specific types of talent that actually have a lot of job options available to them. Or, like I said, scrolling through marketplaces, scrolling through talent databases. And it's a matter of how much time you can put into it. And it's a benefit if your company or agency is at the size that you have a HR department, or if you have an in-house recruiter that can help with some of this. But ultimately, the hiring process is painful. Everybody knows it. Everybody that's in the HR space knows it. Everybody that's in the recruiting space knows it. And there's a lot of solutions out there that are trying to make it less so. And the way that we're coming at this problem is helping you make better use of the people that you have worked with and want to continue to work with in the future. I think that that's our specific focus there. And I think that moreover, our specific focus is building full teams of people that you want to continue to work with or that have worked together in the past. And I think that there's not really a solution out there that's doing that piece of the puzzle. Building teams when you're hiring 3, 5, 7, 12 people at a time, building a studio team that's going to be live for 18 months. We've built that style of team through our consulting past, right? That effort there's no economies of scale right now in the hiring process, right? You have to write 12 JDs. You have to post 12 roles. You have to go through the interview process for 12 different people, and never knowing how they may gel together. And I think what we're trying to do is you have to negotiate 12 different times to figure out what their end rate is going to be. And I think that we're trying to take a lot of the friction out of that process so that you're working with known variables of the talent options for each of those 12 roles up front and how they may fit together. So you can make quicker, more informed decisions as you slot people into roles on your team.
Yeah. And I think the other thing you touched on earlier is also to be kind of reminded is we're taking the kind of the critical in each of these tools where, yes, you can go much deeper in another tool, but what is it you're trying to accomplish, day to day to day? And it's your spend and your budget, keeping track of the people, and just making sure you've got everything in one place so that you're not having to go to HR, to finance, to another team, to your phone,
Exactly.
LinkedIn to find the people. Yeah. So it's like I think that's also what's cool about what's, being built right now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that it's looking at how we can offer a lightweight yet comprehensive solution.
Yeah.
That addresses those very specific pain points without having to band together 5 or 6 or 7 different pieces of software or apps to accomplish it.
Yeah, and I'm excited about the integration piece too you talked about, where, as we get more and more clients and we're able to build more and more of those hooks, that it just is going to become even more powerful.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm just so excited about that. So, to a piece that we also hold near and dear, the ROI and the value prop. Is it possible to quantify the potential savings for a client with what we're building?
I think it depends. So there's two questions that it depends on. One is what tools you're using right now. If it's spreadsheets, if it's your own personal time and elbow grease, what's your hour worth? If you're on the agency side, you have a billable rate, right? As an agency owner or managing director, you have a high hourly rate. And is call it, let's say you're super efficient at this whole process and you build a team in a day, right? 8 hours. How much is 8 hours worth if you could be billing that out to a paying client? That we're talking, and we'll talk price points maybe in a different discussion, but this product more than pay for itself if that's how much time it's saving you week to week or month to month even. I think that's a massive factor. If you are looking at if the systems that you have in place aren't letting you run profitable projects or build teams that fit your budget requirements, then I would argue you need a tool like this that helps you get to that final answer and get to that level of confidence, because otherwise, like, we live and die by the data these days. How else can you run projects profitably? You need to have a system in place. And so I think that looking at what's left on the table, or are your projects consistently going over budget because you had to go back for change orders, look at the value that you end up spending as a business on that quarter over quarter. And imagine deleting it. Imagine deleting that concern from your brain. I think that again, like I said, we'll talk pricing, but we're talking very affordable monthly price points for our initial toolkit that would more than pay for itself in those scenarios.
Yeah, the other one, maybe this isn't as much ROI as the other piece, is just keeping track of those talent contracts and where we're at, not just with their spend, but with their time. Like, do we need to renew that contract? Do we need to do a change order on that contract? Do we need? Oh my gosh, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were like, if you just solve that, it's just like, it's such a pain because you're constantly going, what? Wait, you're right. You only do have a week left, and you feel like, why is the talent always having to tell me?
I was just going to say, I was just going to say the most common format of that is emailing your one freelancer that's working and saying, hey, where are your hours at?
Yeah.
And that is not a scalable system. And it's not one that lets you proactively manage your team's time. Yeah. And so I think that what we're trying to give is visibility and transparency on that front. Yeah. In a way that's really easy for the talent to engage as well, right? It's as simple as timesheets that they're going to do anyway.
Yep. All right. Anything else you want to add? Or I think
I think that's it. We're just a little over time, but I love talking about this kind of stuff. And I, like I said at the top of the call, would love to hear from anybody that's, that this resonates with, or if it doesn't. Yeah. All ears. Right. But I think that we're on the cusp of being able to start actively solving some of these problems, and want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that, again, actually helps companies work with freelancers in a more efficient way, and build solutions that make that easier.
Yep, that's right. So okay, we'll talk on Thursday, and bye Rae, bye George. See you next time, maybe.
But, take care. Have a good morning.
Yeah, you have a good morning too.